So who's attracted to policing jobs? You know what? I'll watch it again with you guys. I already saw this. They had the first word right, devil, and then they should have stopped right there.
One of the areas that abuse of power has shown up a lot in the news recently is with police abuse. One of the things that's been discussed around police reform is how we can make this stop, how we can end up fixing policing. A lot of the discussion is on a part of the problem that absolutely warrants attention, but is only part of the problem, and that's what the police do. So this involves solutions like putting body cameras on police officers, oversight, scrutiny, basically.
That would be great if we actually got access to the body cam footage.
Fixing policing. A lot of the discussion is on a part of the problem that absolutely warrants attention, but is only part of the problem, and that's what the police do. So this involves solutions like putting body cameras on.
We don't get the body cam footage. They hide it for years sometimes. We don't get that body cam footage.
Police officers, oversight.
The politicians, Republicans and Democrats, that a few of you are so indentured with a Democrat or Republican party, your representatives vote to give the body cam footage, the access to it, to the pigs, who are an autonomous organization that make their own decisions.
Scrutiny, basically, trying to make it so that there's deterrence to stop police officers abusing their position. What we don't think about often is not what the police do, but who the police are. On one end of the spectrum, people say that this is anti-police because the data show that some certain types of people are more attracted to policing who frankly shouldn't be in a uniform, and therefore I'm trying to paint the police as some group of bad people, which is not what I'm saying. On the other end of the spectrum, politically.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying police are bad people, that they're evil. This person's evil, this person's evil, this person's evil, and this person is an evil devil. That's what I'm saying.
People are saying this is naive. Policing is fundamentally going to have these problems because the institution of policing was set up to abuse people.
You got to go to 1704, bud, South Carolina slave catchers.
The way I came to this problem was...
He didn't even get the data right.
Set up.
The railroad strike of 1877, if you don't know about it, I can teach it.
To abuse people.
The Fugitive Slave Act, 1893, but there's several Fugitive Slave Acts. There's not just the 1793 Fugitive Slave Act. There's a bunch of them. The way I missed 1704 is when police are created to be slave catchers.
I came to this problem was to look at how recruitment of police officers determines who ends up in the uniform. And I was scouring across the United States and looking at various police departments. And one that stood out to me is this small suburb of Atlanta called Doraville, Georgia. Now, when you used to click on Doraville's website for the police department, you were greeted with this video that is quite frankly insane. The first thing you see is a literal tank with the SWAT team inside of it screaming across the frame. They're in military uniforms, they're carrying assault weapons, and they toss smoke grenades out of the vehicle. They shoot their weapons, and the whole thing is set to the soundtrack of death metal music. The people who look at that video and think, wow, that looks cool. I'd love to drive around Walmart in a tank with a smoke grenade and a huge weapon. They sign up. Now, New Zealand thought about it carefully. So I spoke to people in my research who had designed a system of recruitment that they called Do You Care Enough to Be a Cop? Basically what they start with is this very funny video in which police officers are chasing an unseen suspect, but stopping to help people cross the street, dancing with someone with a boombox for a bit, telling jokes that are quite funny.
You kind of just ruined my flow now. There was supposed to be a big build-up, and now we have to go over this whole section again.
Who's we?
And then at the end of the video, they finally catch the perpetrator, which turns out to be a border collie who's stolen a woman's purse. And Do You Care Enough to Be a Cop flashes on the screen. And what happened in New Zealand was that the number of recruits shot through the roof. Their applicant pool expanded dramatically. People who didn't previously see themselves as police officers started to think, I could do that job because I care about the community. The juxtaposition with the Punisher logo and the tank compared to the border collie and the Do You Care Enough to Be a Cop logo is so extreme that it's almost amusing. It's two parallel worlds of policing that are drastically different. It's not that we can ignore what the police do. We absolutely have to have oversight and very close scrutiny of police officers who abuse their authority. But at the same time, we have to think more carefully about who ends up in the uniform to begin with. This shows up in the data when you.
So this is a nice article and all that, but the truth is that once they sign up to be a pig, they then are indoctrinated into a series of policies and fraternities that they cannot get out of. And if they try to get out of it, they not only could lose their job, they could lose their life. You have to toe the thin blue line or face death. So you get them to sign up under the guise of, hey, do I care enough? And then they get in, and you better care enough to protect the other pigs.
See that the rates of domestic abuse among police officers in the United States is higher than the general average in the public. So, when you think about why that's happening,
it's 10 times higher. I'm not sure if you guys saw the statistic. The general population data, 4% of people. Cops, 40%.
Than the general average in the public. So, when you think about why that's happening, perhaps it's that the job is making them a bit more on edge or causing them to behave in ways. I think what's more likely is that people who are abusive are disproportionately likely to seek a job in which you can abuse people.
Okay, so how do we know this is true? From the Stanford experiment. I've told you guys about the Stanford experiment 50 times. The Stanford experiment showed that the people who signed up to be security for the Stanford experiment were authoritarian and violent. And that's why they took the job. Just like this pig right here.
So that means you have ever more important scrutiny and ever more important screening.
I mean, look at this guy. Does he look like he signed up to help people? Do you think this guy's help? Do you look at him and say, "Oh, I think he's help"? Put a 1 in the chat if he looks like a tyrannical pig. Does he look like he's there to help you? He looks like he's dressed up like G.I. Joe loser.
Who becomes a cop in the first place? That aspect of recruitment is often not part of the discussion. So I think we absolutely have to think about what the police do, but we also have to devote just as much attention to who the police are. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that my proposals mean that we will never have police abuse, we will never have police violence. These are deeply ingrained problems. I do think that we are not picking the low-hanging fruit of how we address some of these problems. And that means that we have to think more carefully about how we can make marginal improvements that add up. You have to make police behave better so that people want to be officers, and you have to present.
Hey, Brian, I appreciate the report, but you don't know what the talking about. You need a third-party organization that's in charge of the body cam footage, the dash cam footage, and punishments for police. You need a third-party insurance for cops. Your ideas are wrong, Brian. I'm sorry. You're wrong. I hate to say it. You're wrong.